Hello, lovely people. My name is Alex White, and this morning I have the pleasure and opportunity again to talk with Michaela Boehm. Good morning.
Hello.
So Michaela, amongst many things, is a world-class and deeply experienced teacher in intimacy, polarity, attraction, and your newest offering, a very interesting one, is around lineage and liberation. I think last time we spoke, you hadn't actually brought that publicly to the world yet. You've had an opportunity to do that now.
Yeah.
And it's coming out to Melbourne later this month, April 2017. Tell us how the Europe experience was and what we can expect in Melbourne.
Well, we did Copenhagen for the first one, and the next one up will be Melbourne, and then we'll do it in Ojai in the beginning of June. And it was it was very interesting. And the reason I'm laughing and saying it's very interesting is that the reason I decided to offer this particular workshop is that one of the aspects of relational as well as kind of sexual, tantric work that people run into is their choice of partners, right? So there's the whole aspect of how do you have, sexual yoga? How do you create pleasure in the body? How do you actually deal with your partner in a conscious way? How do you keep the passion alive? There's all of those aspects, of course, right? How are you in the masculine? How are you in the feminine? But before that, of course, comes why are you choosing the people you're choosing? And and why, when you even know better, you're still choosing the people you're choosing. And so lineage and liberation was originally something that I did in long-term study groups. Aspects of what we're now teaching is lineage and liberation, as well as in a lot of my private work with couples and not only couples, but mostly couples, where we're looking at how does your lineage, meaning the people who raised you, as well as your genetic lineage, influence your choice of mate, your sexual behavior, your behavior around food, around money, the epigenetics, which is the information of traumatic or big life events that's being passed down on the outside of your DNA, and how does that affect and work within the areas of constriction and difficulty in the relationship. And one of the things that was very beautiful in Copenhagen was we did a lot of processes around father, mother, and then, of course, how that and how our parents, biological or adoptive, doesn't matter, and their relationship influences our relationships. There was a lot of ahas from many people on engaging with their parents from a viewpoint of not being a child and seeing them as sexual beings and seeing them in relationship or lack of relationship, and the parallels to who they are and how they are choosing. And then we did a lot of, there's a bunch of shamanic processes of all kinds where we're very actively working on release and release in the body, because of course you can think about this, and most people have done therapy around their ancestry and their upbringing and things like that, but it's essentially a release that goes through the body, both more on a shamanic and also on a just body wisdom way. And several people wrote afterwards and said that their relationship with their parents had actually changed, just from them having a different viewpoint and them being in a different place. And there was there were actually two people who had parents who were sick, where it was very, very moving to hear the different access they had, and then, of course, also the implications on their relationships and, on their sexual preferences at some point. That came up as well. So it was very good, and I'm very much looking forward bringing it to Melbourne, because it's very full on. It's a very intense 2-day process, and it was quite beautiful the way it ended and the aftermath. So it's fun.
Well, I mean, we throw the word around interesting. That sounds fascinating, to the point of, saving you perhaps years in sort of talk therapy on the couch, because as you say, most people have engaged with some sorts of thoughts around being elements of their parents. And also the outcome initially you talked about there is, becoming an adult. I think in our 30s, or at least my experience has been, still both in our relationships, but also relationships with our parents, kind of sitting in that parent-child relationship. It sounds like there might be an opportunity to step more into your adult on more of a wider spectrum more of the time after sitting in this for 2 days.
Correct. It's essentially, when I designed this whole thing first, years ago, in its original forms, it was initially designed to be an initiation, right, into adulthood. And that aspect is very much there. And in the years of working with Steve, we really refined it and kind of streamlined it. Streamlining is one of Steve's great gifts. He's incredibly good at making things clear and precise and efficient. So we've kind of done away with all the excess stuff and added a whole bunch of things so that it's a very full-on journey through the landscapes of your ancestry and your lineage and the epigenetics and all of that. So I'm quite looking forward. It's a great adjunct to any therapeutic or sexual or relational or tantric work that somebody wants to do.
And although you're mentioning, I mean, I can feel the depth of what we're going to be doing. Do you feel that people need to do any particular preparation coming up to it, or any particular reading, or do they need to understand much about their lineage?
None at all. And it actually doesn't really matter how much you know about your lineage. It has more to do with the feeling that you have in your body when you think of the people who raised you. That's the most important thing, and then from there we'll go into the processes of people that they want to connect with that are not their family, right? But who they have attachments to based on the programming that they came in with. So it's actually not necessary, and in a certain way it's kind of good when there isn't a lot of preparation done, so it's fresh and these things hit kind of fresh.
I'll stop drawing out my gene tree. For
I
me,
think those things are best done after, right? Meaning, if from that place you want to explore further back, I think that's excellent.
Okay, I think for me, what I'm hearing and what I've experienced already in my relationship is that when your parents energetically get involved in conflict or get involved in arguments, and God forbid we actually tell our partner, you're so much like your father or mother, and we know where that goes pretty quickly.
Yes.
But to actually have a self-realization of that and then disconnect or put them in their correct place and be able to talk adult to adult has been a massive relief as part of my relationship, even 10, 11 years into a 14-year relationship.
For sure.
So this feels like it might galvanize that even more. It sounds super deep.
Yeah, and it's good because it has a lot of body processes. It's very embodied, so it's not just thinking about things. There is things where you talk about stuff, but there's a lot of things where you work with the body and with release in the body.
Excellent, and I'm sure Steve James, your teaching partner, is helping out with the warming up and getting well into our intimate feeling.
Yes, and also he's created all kinds of amazing playlists for the the shamanic processes. So you'll be definitely up for a sound experience as well.
Excellent. Well, given the room we're using as well, it's a bit of a theatre space in Melbourne that we've found ourselves in. So we'll enjoy that space and sound. Okay. Well, I think that's probably enough of a flavour of what L&L is. I'm sure people have heard the words they need to hear in order to book, or perhaps ask any more questions through your website if they feel the need to. Let's move on to, while we're in Melbourne, there is a Friday night offering. Perhaps you could briefly talk to that. It's a way for people to engage just in a small Friday night option.
Yeah. Well, the Friday night is essentially, an opportunity to just immerse in some tantric practice. That's basic in a certain way, but very powerful, meaning we're exploring the three aspects of what makes erotic tension or erotic friction, as my lineage calls it, meaning the sexual attraction between two people. How that works. So we're pulling it apart a bit so that people get an idea what is what, right? Because there's a lot of confusion around, masculine, feminine, and presence and radiance and all of those kind of things. And so this is an experiential way to engage with these concepts without, getting too much in the head about it, but across from another person, feeling what actually can be felt, right? How can you actually be intimate with someone and not think about being intimate, right? How can you actually engage heart to heart? How can you embody love and come from a place of love into the interaction? And then how do you create the erotic tension between two people? And what are your preferences around that, and how can you actually cultivate that in yourself for the sake of that attraction? And so it's a 3-hour event, and it's always a lot of fun. And we have a few new tricks up our sleeves, meaning we're always making it a bit different. Of course, you always have to do the basics, but so we'll see how it goes.
Well, even those basics are a whole lot of fun. I know I've met a few people who have rebooked, having been in the past. So looking forward to that. As a segue to some deeper work, or at least longer intensive work that you're holding in Byron Bay, there's 5-day events there. That Friday night appears to be working a lot with attraction. As you say, there's some skills around developing that. What would you say the difference is when stepping into a longer container like that? Is it the difference between sort of attraction and perhaps touching more on some spiritual aspects? Or can you define some major differences between the two?
Uh-oh, we have dog interference.
That's all right, I put one away.
I have a new dog, so he has to stay with me, and he is afraid of everything. So, hence the well, like a 3-hour intro event touches on the basics, but then when we do longer events, there is a lot, it's all experiential, right? And it's a lot about developing some actual in-the-body skills, because everybody can think about being available to another human, right? And having hot sex, and you can practice all the techniques you want around having pleasure and arousal and stuff like that, which is fantastic. But then when the rubber meets the road, meaning when you're in situations where you actually find yourself in actual intimate stranger, when all your stuff comes up, it's very useful to have good skill. And skill development is one of the things that is the least talked about, because it's not that sexy. But having actual skill where you can not only, for a moment connect with a human, but actually sustain attention, sustain intimacy, not shrink back because now it's starting to get a bit intense and you're starting to giggle and you're totally breaking the sexual tension. Working with your closures, working with your constrictions. The radical intimacy that we're doing in October will deal in fine detail with how do you conduct pleasure, how do you conduct touch, how do you work with touch in different ways, therapeutically, through the heart, and sexually. What are the differences, right? When do you use what? How do you speak to somebody for arousal versus for heart connection versus for connection, right? All of those kind of things. So there's a lot of skill development, but in the sense of experience and exercises. So it's pretty much, it's full day event, full day, I think 10 to 5 or so. And of 10 to 5, other than maybe an hour maximum, it's all exercises, including lunch exercises. So you get to go very, very deep and very detailed, versus, an intro event, which just gives you a flavor. So the intro event would be what we're doing in the intro event would be the first hour of the first day.
Exactly. And you've mentioned that to me before. It's sort of, if you've had a cataclysmic experience in just a little bit of a Friday night and going, wow, this is going to change my life. I think what you're talking about is actually conditioning that into your being over 5 days and ensuring that you can walk away after having developed that skill. That sounds super exciting. So for Byron Bay, you mentioned Radical Intimacy, and for people that is in October this year and can be booked already, and obviously an early bird on that. But for May coming up, we're separating the genders briefly for 5 days,
Yes.
and diving into Wild Woman Way and Steve James's Man Unbound.
Yes. Super excited about that.
Yeah, attending myself. I'm very keen, and I can already feel some obstacles, or at least, as you say, when people are in this for so long, they start to either find the contractions, or maybe they get bored, or what's this all about? Once you've gone through all the sort of basics and stuff we're used to, what for people looking to attend the 5 days, how I'm looking for a flavor of, spirituality is thrown around a lot at the moment. People might be doing spiritual workshops, or even touching on Tantra workshops, which attempt to combine sexuality and spirituality. What sort of mix is involved in both your 5 day for women's and Steve's, in terms of becoming more balanced beings, more spiritual? Those sorts of terms get thrown around a lot. So can you give people some frames on that?
Well, I come from a tradition, and also my personal orientation is one of devotion. And, and particularly, in the lineage that I was first educated in, devotion and in the tantric sense was the most important thing. And what that means, and specifically, is everything being sacred, right? So every action, everything you do, every consideration you have, being included in your sacred life, so to speak. So there shouldn't be a difference between sitting on a meditation cushion and, in my case, cleaning up the horse shit, which I love doing for that exact reason, right? It's a very, it's a very basic, ordinary, but involved activity. Right? Not everybody, but washing dishes, whatever you're doing. I mean, you can do emails as a sacred activity. And so spirituality for me is all-encompassing. It's not that thing that you do just in a ritual. It's not something that you do as a badge so you feel better than other people. It's a way of life where your involvement with whatever you hold sacred, however you want to, God, the universe, whatever, right, gets infused in all of your activities, and your body and your being conduct that kind of love, God, devotion, energy, no matter what you do. And that's both very pleasurable and very rewarding, because there's no separations in your life, and your life becomes kind of a living, breathing offering, and in a certain way sacrifice, but living, breathing offering in the first sense. And so the men's and women's events have totally different focus, of course, but the women's event is geared towards each woman essentially discovering her flavor of that, a specific expression of who she is as a woman. How does woman express through her body. What kind of devotion, what kind of love, what kind of expression, what kind of sexual expression does each woman have? So it's a very personal inquiry within the context of 5 days of embodiment, inquiry, connecting with other women, movement, dance, kind of looking at where are people holding back women in this case, where people clenching down, conditioning, wounds, all that kind of stuff. So it all gets looked at, and we're essentially using the whole gamut of what's possible in a women's circle to give each woman a bit better access to who she is and the bodily experience of expressing herself. And so that's what's happening with the women. Man Unbound. I'm so excited about it because one of the things that compelled me to teach with Steve is that Steve is always practicing, developing, studying, having a personal inquiry, and in the way he teaches, as you well know because you've been around him, to him it's very important that he gives men a chance to inquire into who they are and have a personal experience instead of telling them how it is and how they should behave and what they should do. And so why I'm very excited about it is that this is not your typical men's workshop. Right? This doesn't follow any of the format or the engagement that's typically done in men's groups. And I find it to be, from the work that we've done together. And of course, I'm not always present for the men's portion. Sometimes I am, because the men's and women's study groups we teach in Europe, we're both there. So I see the guys and I see how it goes. And it's incredibly empowering. Truly empowering, not in the rah, 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 bang on your chest, whatever, kind of a way where then you go home and then your life kicks in, but empowering in the way that you learn things about who you are and you learn and you inquire about your path and your way of, expressing yourself. And so there will be, lots of very good embodied movement, lots of, I don't want to give too much away because that's Steve's domain, but it will be very good. And we also have an amazing space for that is very, beautiful and expansive and creative as well.
Absolutely. And for the men listening, perhaps Steve James's SoundCloud, we did an interview together where he does go into some detail on what we'll be covering, and you can get a feel for Steve if you happen to not be in his presence before. Either way, whatever body you find yourself in, it looks like you're going to get a very personalized journey, and not and I say get, but also that you'll be doing that yourself. You'll arrive at the end of the week knowing what it is for you, not so much as a student-teacher paradigm, but as just a human walking out with some real skills to take back into your life and to your relationship.
Yeah, and insights.
Yeah. So. Well, that sounds very exciting. Let's let you get back to your busy schedule. Lots of announcements and things coming up that we'll sign on to your SoundCloud account to hear about, or signing up to the newsletter via michaelaboehm.com. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time this morning. We know you are pretty much doing a continual world tour. You just keep going in a wide circle through Europe, America, and Australia.
Yeah, it's Australia, then the US, then Europe again. I'm going to take 2 months off in the summer to deal with a project that I will announce this week. And then we'll start back up Europe, then the US, Canada, Australia again. And then back to Europe. So it's a pretty full year, and it's very exciting. We're also going to put a few more workshops on the books, so look out for those.
Thank you. It's amazing to have these world-class teachers visit Australia and you know, there's a little bit of online content for people who are interested in Steve's work. He has his Cohen Method DVD available online through his website and through Michaela's website as well. And if people are interested in understanding more about Michaela, obviously your website goes into detail, but SoundCloud there must be 100 hours worth of stuff there to really dig deep on some particular issues. You know, we're talking about some event-based stuff, but you've really dived deep recently into some of the tantric practices, and I enjoyed the Vajra family chat recently. That was quite insightful. So plenty there for people to engage with.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to cover off before arriving in Australia in 3 or 4 weeks?
Well, of course, there's teacher training, which we haven't spoken about since it's pretty much full. There's a few seats left. But yeah, we're offering teacher training both in an embodiment method called the nonlinear movement method, which I've developed over the years, and specifically a set of exercises that will allow the people who are taking the teacher training to immediately go teach. It's a very specific slice of the work that we do, and it's formatted in a way that at the end of the teacher training, people can go out and actually teach a really good, impactful 3-hour class, 3 to 6 hour class. So that's happening also in Byron Bay. And I think we have 3 spots left or something like that. So if people are interested, it's all on the website.
Fantastic. As you say, it's all on the website, and there is chances in October as well in Byron Bay to jump in on radical intimacy, as well as the second half of teacher training if people are involved in that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. We realise it's quite different weather over there. I saw the sunshine out your door before, so...
Cold there already?
It is actually, Michaela. Pack a jumper. There's the last few days of sunshine, which the Melburnians are enjoying. We've got Easter this weekend, lots of people camping. But beyond that, yeah, definitely pack a jumper.
I was having fantasies of frolicking on the beach in Byron, so... Ooh.
maybe with a wetsuit. We'll find you a wetsuit. We'll go out and say hi to the whales.
Okay, well, that's good education for me. I was under the impression it was still warm enough. So, okay, on that happy note.
On that happy note, then. Well, thank you, and we look forward to all that and more. I'm hearing lots of adult initiations and some deep experiential work that benefits our lives long term. It's not about having these little peak experiences in workshops and running back to our everyday lives. This is therapy. This is and also fun. I mean, I know you guys have a lot of fun in the room. It's not all deep and dark.
Not at all. Particularly in lineage liberation, it's very, it's very much on the shamanic end and very little on the therapeutic end. And so there's a lot of embodiment. So it's a very dynamic kind of a workshop. So, yeah.
Excellent. Well,
thank you.
Looking forward to it, and we'll see you in a few weeks. Thank you, Michaela.
All right. Bye.
Bye.